And let me say one thing here. I had a fantastic teacher in classical homeopathy while I was going through medical school. And, at the end of one session, he introduced like the 50th remedy with all the details. And I said, listen, like, Dr. Köhler, all these remedies look the same to me. Like, they all have the same kind of picture, little different shades here and there, but all the same. And he looked at me and he said, if you give the patient the wrong homeopathic, one wrong homeopathic after another, the input to the immune system and the challenge to the system will be such that the patient gets well with all the wrong remedies. And I took that pretty much into my life as a physician, that even if the things that I'm doing are in the moment maybe the wrong thing for the patient, it still will lead him to higher ground on the long run. And it has been absolutely true. Of course, we're not God. We're not trying to be God. We're doing the best we can. And very often we do things that may be unnecessary for the patient, or maybe the wrong timing for this particular treatment, and the patient still get well, because the system is very forgiving.
Yeah, and I think the reason it is so forgiving is because you're focusing almost exclusively on natural therapies. And if you're using a conventional approach, and the antibiotics is certainly part of them, especially, Cipro and these fluoroquinolones that are toxic and can kill people. We have over 100,000 people every year. That's a large number, 100,000 people every year who die from appropriately used prescription drugs, not abused, not overdosed, just given at the right doses, they die from them. So, that's the risk when you go with that model. When you go with your model, yeah, it may not work, but at least you're not going to die, and most likely you're going to go be catalyzed down the path of healing.
There was a time, I like to say that still, to antidote that a tiny bit, there was a time when I thought I would kill everybody by putting them on long-term antibiotics. And I was amazed, if antibiotics are used correctly, like Eilertz is teaching, how actually relatively safe it is. But it's not aesthetic, it's not elegant, it's not in keeping with the earth, it's not fulfilling the yearning of the earth, that we work with the earth together with the things that are offered to us by the earth. And I think my approach certainly comes from that, wanting to be part of the earth and not like a superimposed parasite that lives off the earth but doesn't give anything back. So we're looking at more like how can we live in harmony with the earth, where the earth benefits from us and we benefit from the earth. And the approach that I lay out in the recorded meeting, A Look Beyond Lyme, certainly is in keeping with that.
Yeah, well, my major objection to using antibiotics is my new deep found appreciation for the gut ecology, and I've certainly known about that for a long time, but it's just become even more importantly obvious to me that once you disrupt that flora, you're really exposing yourself for a whole risk of potential pathology. And the newest appreciation is this risk exposure to autism. And Dr. Campbell McBride has done some of the work. She's a Russian neurologist who has an autistic child, and she found in her experience that it was this disturbed gut flora that, in combination with other predisposing factors like vaccines, that really contributed to it. So, if you've got these people who are on the antibiotics for months, even though they're on a safe protocol, there's no question you're disrupting their gut flora. So you have to address that in some way. And I suspect that's part of their protocol. I haven't looked at it, but it's still a problem. And you've just when.
Absolutely, and maybe one thing to that. I know that you have a new probiotic that I'm excited about.
Yes,
but it's amazing when you think we have 400 different species of microbes in the gut, and the best probiotic that we can buy, has maybe 2 of them in it.
Yeah.
How about the other 398? In Germany we have a couple of products that have some healthy E. coli in it. Okay, that's 3 species. We got Acidophilus, we got Bifidus. We got a couple of healthy yeasts, and we got coli. That we got maybe 5 species of the 400 that we can actually kindly give to the patient with your product. Maybe there's another 5.
Right.
So, but I think one thing that we're really struggling with in our medicine is that the probiotic science, sort of in a way, I'm sure you agree with me, is at the very beginning. We can do the best there is right now.
Well, and probiotics are a supplement. I mean, ideally, use a fermented food, that has been used for ages in many cultures, and there's a whole variety of different ones. And that's really the first approach. And then not putting weed killers into your system like the sugars, which kill them, or antibiotics, or these other factors, birth control pills that really disrupt that. So, and I think the part of the reason why even if you go to supplements as they tend to work, is that when you combine it with the dietary approaches, you limit the growth of these bad populations so that eventually they don't suppress, it's sort of a competitive inhibition, the process that's going on there. So the other ones that, even though they haven't been disrupted completely, they give an opportunity to grow. So, if you remove most of the weeds, then the good guys can grow.
Yeah. And as you know, I was raised on sauerkraut.
That's phenomenal. That is like one of the best fermented foods. I'm actually culturing some right now in my garage.
You got to watch out. You may start dreaming in German.
No, it is a very powerful food, and it's relatively inexpensive to make. I mean, it self-cultures,
I got to come visit you again, Joe. I want to look that up. Because I have no idea how to make sauerkraut, but I grew up on it. It was the poor people's food. That's what poor people fed their children if they didn't have anything else. You could always get sauerkraut.
One of the things I've learned that Dr. McBride teaches is that is to use some of the sauerkraut or the juice from the sauerkraut right before you eat. It's a very powerful way to enhance gastric acid secretion. So and it's a massive problem for most people is stomach distress, and that's why they're taking so many antacids and anti-ulcer drugs. So powerful way to do it. It's simple, and it just rebalances that gut flora, but it also improves the whole function of the gut. So
I agree with you. I heard you say this, but I think it's true. We pretty much know everything that's going on inside the cell. We have no idea what's going on inside the gut.
Yeah. It is so key, so key. So that is just phenomenal. I'm particularly intrigued with this new liposomal system that you've got going, and the implications. My mind is spinning because it's massively the potential is so massive for what it can do in so many other different areas. I mean, we know that one of the hottest things from nutritional science right now is this liposomal C, and
you can make it in a blender.
Yeah.
For a fraction of the price it costs you elsewhere.
Yeah, and the liposomal C is so useful even at the higher price because it's still better than the intravenous vitamin C that most of the alternative medicine physicians have used. We both use it in large quantities, and that takes a long time, and you've got to go to the trouble and hassle of getting an injection, go to the physician's office, So and it's not comfortable.
I know.
But the liposomal can be every bit as effective or potentially even more effective.
There is a liposomal explosion going on as we're speaking, but really that is so easy to make. That was a big breakthrough for us, that we can take anything that shows up in our field that works for Lyme disease, we can make it work 20 times better by making it liposomal in the blender next to the kitchen sink.
And how did you develop that? Was that something you learned from someone else, or did you just figure it out by trial and error or muscle testing?
I figured that one out by listening to the vitamin reps at the different conferences, and putting different sentences together from different researchers, how they're doing it, and I realized there's no space science. there's no space science. It needs a blender and it needs an ultrasound unit to vibrate it at the sound frequencies that make smaller and smaller bubbles. And, that it's not a $500,000 piece of equipment that's needed for that. And so I don't want to put the liposomal products down that are done, somewhere in a pharmaceutical place or so. They may be by a fraction more effective than the self-made ones, but the cost-benefit ratio is so dramatic, and we have, BioPure has a liposomal vitamin C that's excellent, but I like to make my own in the kitchen sink. I like to take a teaspoon of vitamin C and put it with the liposomes and have a huge effect on it. Like flus are non-existent since we know this. You take a teaspoon of vitamin C and a tablespoon of the Lipo Health powder, put it in the blender, put it through the process, 2 hours later, the flu is history. I mean,
Well, what type of vitamin C are you using? I mean, specific, because there's a whole argument. You can use ascorbic acid or the calcium ascorbates or the or the salts of the vitamin C that are any more beneficial than others.
I use a product that has a lot of the natural cofactors in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't want to actually say the name because it's a commercial available product that's used for people suffering from allergies, and it has some quercetin in it and some of the typical flavonoids and other things from acerola and from some of the natural. I do strongly feel that the cofactors of vitamin C are just as important as the vitamin
Sure.
C. However,
Yeah,
this is for the long run. For the acute one, just straight ascorbic acid works.
will work.
It's absolutely work. For the acute flu, there's nothing like it. Just a teaspoon of vitamin C, you get an effect of 10 to 20 times more. So five grams of vitamin C, which you typically have on a teaspoon, turn to 50 to 100 grams of vitamin C in terms of the effect. That's the effect of a really strong IV or more.
Yeah, because an IV is typically 25 grams, at least in one ampule. I mean, you can certainly put more, but if you're taking 50 or 100 grams, it's going to take you 4 hours to run that IV.
It takes forever.
Yeah, and what was the other component? Oh, the other element that I'm sure you can affirm is that when you do the liposome, one of the side effects of oral vitamin C is diarrhea once you get to a threshold dose. And when you have a liposomal function, because of the absorption, it bypasses that, goes right into the bloodstream, and you don't have any diarrhea.
It's long absorbed before it can cause diarrhea.
Yeah. So that's if it's causing diarrhea, then you don't have a liposome because it's not working.
Exactly. That's how we can test it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's great. So you have any other, I guess, from a person who is a typical candidate you're seeing or people you've seen that are applying these strategies in a diligent fashion, where they're really taking to heart what you're saying and really being good about applying the principles. What type of percentage of people are you seeing improved? And you see probably the worst of the worst.
Well, typically, when we start somebody on a protocol, we expect the first 2 months to be a little bit rough. They go through different die-off of parasites and of spirochetes and other things. But we expect already after 4 months to be the patient on higher ground. Sometimes it takes usually I see a patient only once every 4 months. So on the second visit, I expect them to be on higher ground. And between the second visit and the third visit, 4 months later, to reach much higher ground. Now, of course, I'm specializing in the failures of everybody else. So I have my friends in the Lyme field send me their difficult patients. And so with difficult patients are also difficult for me. I'm not going to mince words with that. But the difficulty usually arises because the patients are financially at the bottom and they don't have any help anymore. Their husband has long left them. And when I send them back and say they need to mitigate the mold, they don't have the means, either psychologically, mentally, the strength, the will, to translate that into action. And the typically chronic devastated Lyme case that we see is often not able to mitigate the mold and mitigate the electrosmog. And so my preconditions are not met. And so with these people, we struggle. At first, we have to get them biochemically better in spite of the continuing offending influences at home. We have to get them biochemically better to where their mind functions to a degree, where they develop the will again to put the things in motion that they need to have a healthy home to continue to improve. And so that really is our main obstacle, is the practicality of it. That the changes that people are asked to do in the beginning are massive and absolutely necessary. It's not like me being willful with the patient. Unless you do what I say, I'm not going to see you. But they're absolutely necessary for the patient, for the chronically ill patients. The mitigating the electrosmog is an absolute must. Mitigating the mold is an absolute must. And if the patient doesn't have the support system around them to put that in place, those are the patients we struggle with. There's occasional, of course, patients that do everything right, and we still don't get them well. It's rare, but that's of course life. These are usually my teachers. Patients that are there to teach me something I don't know yet, and I'm open to that, and I don't take it that personal anymore. My ego has long been gone, has long been destroyed on that. So I don't take those things personal, but I recognize some of my patients as my teachers. The difficult ones that need a unique route that at the end, looking back, probably will have taught me something new, and that's